Hey guys, wanted to put together a video about data stacking. Data stacking is something that we're using for people to find out what properties are in their market that they should be targeting and how to. So the first thing we had to do is come up with, for outbound marketing, data. So over here you can see that we have just some lists broken out. So tax delinquent has 4,000 people. Traditionally you'd send that off and get it skip traced. Absentee owner, and then code violations. This comes out to be 9,000 different properties if you count up the individual list. Stacking just puts them all together into a raw data set. The raw data set now only has 4,000 properties in it because they're unique. And you can see that the difference is 5,000 properties that you would not have had to skip trace if you had stacked them. So in here, we can see that this one is on, this particular property is on 3 different lists. This one's on 2, this one's on 2, and this one's on 2. So to get an idea, if your numbers are bigger than that, just add zeros to it. 40,000, 30,000, and 20. So the first thing that we would do is go through and do some hygiene, figure out who has sold the houses, so it's a scrubbed list. And then we break it out into phone type. What we found out was in phone types, we would have a little bit more than half the people would have mobiles. And that means that these would go into a campaign specifically for mobile, these would go in for landlines, and these would go to direct mail. If you're not doing that, those would be the ones that I'd say target, because you probably haven't been working with them very much. As you're doing all the outbound marketing, you generate your own lists. So in your own list, you have people that have the wrong numbers. You have people that are disconnected. You have people that, whatever it is, the data isn't right. That's the reason it's called raw data. So now you have these, what we're calling blacklist, or I don't know what you call them, but we'd throw those back in the system and it would rewrite all of this data. And what we're seeing is you have more of a 20%, a 30%, and a 50%. So 20% will still have mobiles, 30% will have landlines, and 50% will be no data. So basically it just moves the bar around once you start finding out you have wrong numbers. All this data is interesting because anybody in the world can go buy this set of data and the matches. But what ended up happening was, next month you go out and you buy a new list, or a new, every month you buy a list. So let's say that this particular property is now on, we've seen people have as many as 15 times showing up on different individual lists. So what that means is you're buying the property or the data off of some kind of list. You're paying a penny to $1 a piece, and now it starts adding up into be a whole lot. Well, what people don't understand is they keep buying more data and more data. We've seen it as much as having 500,000 individual properties on the combined list, and having, I don't know, closer to 100,000 total raw uniques. So that means they're buying huge amounts of data to stack in. But what happens is they're stacking it here and cannot identify if the people have any contact. What ends up happening is, when you identify that the number is wrong, we no longer have a number to contact them, and it dumps it into the no data category. Even though the first time you used it, you skip traced it, you were given a phone number, it's just a bad number, So this number keeps going up, you keep paying for it because it's on, whatever list you're buying, but you have no way of contacting. So that's what the whole idea behind data stacking and being able to sort the data based on the information is. You can now identify properties that are not being contacted. If it's, because at first it was up here, it had a mobile or it had a landline, it doesn't matter. If those numbers were wrong, it's now a no data. So instead of going out and buying more data and more data, it's being able to identify the properties by using your own blacklist. Your own blacklist are, return mail, it's your SMS categories, your dialers. Everybody comes up with their own list from different systems. All we do is combine it and toss it back in the raw data. That cleans it, and this right here is the information from your marketing that no one else has. Like I was saying, anybody from anywhere in the world can go to different data providers and buy basic information, property addresses. They can send it off and skip trace it through, now hundreds of different skip trace companies, but they don't know who the bad numbers are. So once you start getting to scale, you end up having 50,000 or 100,000 people that don't have correct data. And that number I showed over here earlier of the 20%, that's contact rate. That doesn't mean much. The 30%. So all these people that don't respond, how many of those are correct? So once we can find out that you're sending SMSs or you're calling a number and you're leaving a message and you don't get an answer back, are those right or wrong? We don't know. No one does. So it's identifying who's on multiple lists and then coming up with a method to be able to contact them. So if you need help with automation or any kind of parts of being able to break out your own data, these are basic numbers, and we had to develop a whole lot of pretty complex software that can break it out into many different categories to make it manageable bite-sized pieces. So if you have any questions, reach out.